morning, everyone. All right, I'm gonna review this morning's trades. It was a fairly boring morning, to be honest. It was green. It was, price action was moving, but there wasn't a wide variety of movement, if you will. But it was a green morning, so I'm gonna review this morning. I'm gonna record it. I'm gonna post it, and then stick around because after we'll talk about the game plan for this week and kind of what's coming up. But, as far as this morning's concerned, you have a bunch of pivots everywhere. Um, if you take a look at the pre-market analysis on the 1 minute, you're chopping down. Now, typically chopping down is bullish. However, the longer you chop down, the more bearish it becomes. So, if anything, I was leaning very slightly bearish, but not enough to, potentially take a trade. Really the only way I take a put trade is if we come up, do something like this, and then come back down. You can see a little head and shoulders here. Then I can take it to maybe demand. That's kind of what I was thinking. Otherwise, we have a lot of pivots to the upside. If you take a look at the 15-minute chart, we don't really have much. I mean, we have a confirmed, well, it kind of went a decent bit over the pivot, but at least on NQ, we have a solid bearish liquidity sweep, and we've been making higher highs. So I am leaning slightly bearish, but it doesn't really help because I can't really get triggered into a short trade unless we drop a lot. Whereas I can get triggered into long trades easily because I have a lot of nearby pivots to the upside, lots of lower highs, and once a majority of this move invalidates, I'm able to get in and it's a solid trade. But I can't get into puts here because it'll be on a pivot. I can't get into puts here because it's just now touching demand. I would only be able to get into puts roughly down here. To play as continuation to these pivots for the demand break. So that's kind of what it's looking like this morning. And we opened here. Almost got into calls, but I don't enter on the first candle market open. This is why it invalidated. Now, puts didn't look terrible here, but you just got into demand. NQ just got into demand. I wanted to wait a little bit longer because ideally I wanted to enter puts roughly down here. And we started kind of bouncing out of demand. Still didn't look very bullish. But I've seen this exact candlestick setup with demand reverse plenty of times. Because even though most of the candles are selling wick, you're still getting enough buying pressure to, at least for a little bit, invalidate a majority of the red candles. So, still nothing I can really do there. And then again, NQ is really strong, ES is really weak. So it's either going to be SPX puts or QQQ calls. I was actually leaning a bit more towards NASDAQ calls. And then this is where my Thinkorswim crashed. So I need to restart my Thinkorswim here. So I was out of commission. And that's really annoying because I saw it on TradingView. I'm like, this is where I could be entering puts. Wasn't the greatest though, because that we do kind of have a large volume on ES, and we have a buying wick across the board on both ES and NQ. But now this has dropped enough to where ES is clearly out of this descending channel, and NQ is getting there as well. So now I can, start thinking about the demand break here. And there is multiple pivots here. There's pivots here, and then there's one right here. It's a very solid price target. Well, I didn't end up getting back to my Thinkorswim until this candle right at the beginning. Now, this candle opened bearish, so I knew this candle would at least be bearish. I filled pretty much right here, like right at the open of this candle, before it made a lower low or anything. And this is an okay trade. I'm technically able to get confirmed in. NQ's way outside of the channel now. We haven't validated a vast majority of the of this run, and this is a very solid price target. I'm leaning pretty bearish for the demand to break, but the problem is it's bearish enough for me to have my foot in the door. However, it's not bearish enough for me to be full size. You see a couple issues here. You see a lot of volume. You see 3 candles in a row with the lower lows and buying wicks on ES. and we just hit lower demand. So I entered this trade half size, and it started off green because, I entered at the very beginning of this candle. And as far as my stop loss is concerned, it wasn't a hard stop loss initially. Ideally, I'm hoping to average down, right? I'm looking for some kind of bounce, add on that bounce, and then either stop loss or it'll hit PT from there. But that's the whole idea. So we start bouncing, and I add my second half kind of in the middle of this candle here, which brings my average on these contracts to, I entered 2.7, I added on 2.0, so at 2.35. And keep in mind, I never add unless I enter half size, ever, ever, ever. It's not allowed. Well, I shouldn't say add. I never average down, right? Sometimes I'll average up on a trade that I entered full size, but that's only in kind of rare cases. But anyways, roughly here, my stop loss was hard. And this candle closed a little bit too bullish. It looked like, unfortunately, ES started flipping strong. And keep in mind, this entire time, ES has been super weak, but likely this demand here flipped it a bit strong. I ended up stop lossing early on this candle. I didn't want to wait for it to go anymore. That candle was plenty bullish enough, and yes, it's kind of a trendline retest on NQ, but ES is also still a lot stronger than NQ, so I just stop loss early here. I stopped at 1.65 for minus 29%, so pretty shitty way to start the morning, but it did end up being a good loss. Now, or a good stop loss. Now, if this did come back down, it would have been extremely annoying, but I would have re-entered the same trade. And this trade was valid. I mean, I entered it really the only place I could. I just wasn't willing to risk missing this trade here. But this trade ended here. Stop loss like right there. And we did go down a little bit more. But then we ended up going up. And it looks like NQ regained its strength. I'm like, okay, I can't really do much. The nearest pivots are pretty far away. Kind of have a high day pivot on NQ, but really the big pivots they're pretty far away. But, kind of for the same reason I got into puts, I'll get into calls. And if a majority of this move invalidates, I will be triggered in. And I did end up hopping in half size on this candle here. And give me 1 second. I'm going to shut my door so it's not as loud. Run it back. And laundry machine is super loud. So I entered half size on this candle here. And again, with the half size, it's just I don't like buying at the top of things or shorting at the bottom of things. It's just not something I enjoy doing. And here, given this setup, I mean, we dropped really hard and very far, and then we rebound really hard and really far. It is extremely likely, at the very bare minimum, we get some kind of leg of consolidation to put in a potential cup and handle. All right, that's kind of the bare minimum. So that's what I'm looking for. And we do end up pulling back, and on this next candle, I actually do end up averaging down and adding my second half. It actually was like a near perfect fill. Because right after I filled, not right after, like 5-10 seconds after I filled, we got this huge buying wick, and it was super, super bullish. By here, I pretty much not only knew that we were going to get new high of day, but I knew the odds of us getting at least pre-market high was extremely likely. So I entered the trade at 55 cents, the zero-day QQQ calls, and I averaged down at, I think, 48 maybe, 47 or 48. So my average was 51 cents. It's actually 51.5. But roughly 51, 52 cents a contract. And yeah, just kind of same thing as the last trade. Just a momentum continuation trade to the nearest pivot. And the nearest kind of pivot was pre-market high. It was rejecting it a little bit, but then we did end up breaking to the upside. And I did actually end up taking some trims here. Not really a high trim. I believe I got like 17%, I think it was, like 17 or 18% on this trim. But the issue was we had news coming up at 7 o'clock my time, which is in 5 minutes. So you're never going to really see me be heavy into news. And if I'm able to take profits, and I mean, we're kind of at a pivot, it just makes sense to. So I did trim here for 18% gains. And news ended up being bullish. And I, believe it or not, actually added on the news candle. On the news candle and during the next candle. Because this candle opened a tiny red candle and then invalidated. That is extremely bullish. So I didn't actually even sell here, which I planned on doing. By this point, I am extremely confident that we're not only going to break supply, but we're going to wipe out all these pivots. Because, I mean, think about it. We had a lot of lower lows. We swept heavy 3-hour demand. We've invalidated a vast majority of the drop. And our biggest resistance area on the entire chart so far was this pre-market high in combination with supply, and we just blew right through it. So no doubt in my mind that we're going to get there. That doesn't mean I'm going to be unwilling to stop loss. But I did end up averaging up here. And it was like at this point that I flipped green on the day. Not when I averaged up, but because I trimmed off. But then I ended up adding. So now I'm green on the day. And this, stop loss is looking really good. And today's one of those days where, when it's so decisive trend-wise, if you can't accept a loss, you are going to die. You're going to blow all your accounts, or you're going to lose a massive amount of your options portfolio. It's only during choppy markets that you can get away with that. But days like today, if you can't accept a loss or you get stuck averaging down, it's not going to go well for you. And, I'm one of the few analysts that doesn't try to save even a fraction of my red trades, because that doesn't make me money. It just artificially inflates my win rate, which I do not care about my win rate. I care about making money for a living. Anyways, okay, so by this point, it's looking obvious that NQ is going to break supply and take out all these pivots. ES, we did such a good job at choosing NQ. ES isn't even at its nearest pivot yet. So I'm thinking ES is at least going to get to its pivot. Now, is it very likely to pull back once it gets to its pivot? Yes, because I see an inverse head and shoulders here. Spoiler, it kept going, but this was just beautiful. I mean, we got like kind of a small bull pennant there. I was thinking we are going to get a more solid leg of consolidation, but we just got through everything, and I sold the rest here. Or no, I sold everything besides a single runner because ES still didn't get to its nearest pivot. The second ES did get to its nearest pivot, I sold my runner. There you go. So I sold it right here. 1.2 for 135% gains. Seems kind of low. Looking back on it, I didn't really notice this in the moment, but looking back on it, I feel like I should have made more than 135% because that is a huge, huge move this morning. And I didn't even really buy during that high of implied volatility. But then I closed up shop here. I'm fairly bullish for ES to get to supply. I was considering taking SPX calls here, but it was just too close to the PT. I would have taken one more additional trade, which would have been SPX calls, if we came back down and at least got one, maybe two oscillations to kind of put in that inverse head and shoulders early. That would have been an extremely easy trade with high probability and a great risk to award to get into. But unfortunately, I didn't get it. It was just too bullish. So didn't bother. I wasn't willing to take a loss on it. And NQ ended up flipping weak. ES got through its pivots. And that leaves us to where we're at now. And as you guys know, I'm done trading. But where we're at now is, well, technically it's a broadening top, which is a bearish reversal pattern as far as the book is concerned. But this looks more like bullish consolidation to me. So, yeah, just a very bullish morning. And, I'm surprised that it was so bullish after this huge drop. But, somewhat boring. Just market move two directions. Beautiful stop loss on my first trade. And did an awesome job of letting my winners run on this trade. So very, very nice morning. Very easy. Perfect psychology. That's what matters. And yeah, that was good. But all right, type in chat. Do you guys have any questions regarding this morning's analysis? Super, super straightforward. The biggest reason why I wanted to do this review is kind of explain the put trade, because I did technically enter puts on the low of day candle, which I very rarely do. But that's more of just a luck thing. But I just thought I needed to explain that put trade because, The put trade that I took, in essence, is the exact same trade that I took for calls. It's literally the exact same trade. Most of the move was invalidated. It's a momentum trade. It's a momentum continuation trade to the nearest pivot. Enter half size though, because I'm not entering on consolidation, so I expect consolidation to happen. But if it doesn't, I don't want to miss it. It's exactly what I did on the Nasdaq, and you know, one of them worked out, so that's what matters. Zin, I'm gonna put the weekly schedule here in a minute. I don't think I'm gonna live futures trade this week. I think this will be the last week that I don't. I'm still working on the mechanical future strategy, but we'll talk about that after this recording is done. How did you decide to average up on the news candle? I mean, if you just look at it, it was like the most bullish thing I've ever seen in my life. Okay, like it's plus. I mean, context is important. Look how nice these pivots are up ahead. It's beautiful, and to be clear, I didn't average up on the news candle. I averaged up right after the news candle closed, and this candle opened very small red. By then, I knew that news candle momentum, because also the candle's important. Like you guys didn't see this. Here's what we're gonna do, because that's a good question. If a news candle just spawns in like this, I'm not gonna average up on it, right? But if we drop down to like let's drop down to like the 5 second chart, or even just the 1 second chart. That way you guys can actually see what happened during this news candle. So here's the news candle. We came up, we came all the way back down, and then we came all the way back up and took out higher new highs. And then we came back down, and then we invalidated the drop, and then we pulled back, and then we invalidated the drop again for new highs. And then that's where we left off. So when you're watching that candle live, what you're going to see is you're going to see an initial rush of bullish momentum. Shorts try to invalidate it. The shorts get invalidated, and it happened twice over. That's extremely indicative of an incoming short squeeze, and that's what happened. That's pretty much what I expected. So all I waited was for the next candle to open and open fairly bullish, which it did. It opened small red here, and immediately this momentum just kind of carried into the next candle. It didn't immediately invalidate, so it was a very, very bullish candle. Very bullish candle to watch live. So, and it was obvious, like it was extremely obvious. Look how nice the pivots look. Look how we swept lower lows and took out demand. Look how much momentum we have. It was the easiest thing ever. This morning was such an easy morning, aside from having to stop out of my first trade, but it was an easy decision. But all right, any more questions whatsoever regarding this morning's analysis? Oh, no questions? All right, sweet. Well, I will upload this recording and I'll let you guys know when it's uploading, and then we'll talk about this weekly schedule. But for everyone else that's watching this, if you guys ever have any questions, you guys can either DM me. My username is Bryce Trades, or you can just throw it in the comments. I'm probably not going to see the comments, honestly. I don't really check my YouTube channel, but there's a chance. So if I were you, I'd try both. Are we having group 3 meeting? We'll see. Yesterday was a holiday, so I don't do meetings on holidays. I'm with family and whatnot. But all right, I will end this recording and let you guys know when it's uploaded.